Welcome back to the podcast where passion and purpose collide. We are here with Jenna Lamb of Nothing Bundt Cakes. Jenna's journey with Nothing Bundt Cakes started by default when the idea was born between her mother, Debbie Shwetz, and Debbie's friend, Dena. The business launched out of her home kitchen, and she had the privilege of being an original bundt cake flavor tester. Who wouldn't want that job, right? At 14, she worked as a part-time guest service representative and always loved the guest experience. Found there that she truly enjoyed the genuine connection she was able to form with people coming in to celebrate their special occasions. She worked in the bakery on and off through college, got a degree in communications studies. And after a year working outside of the business of Nothing Bundt Cakes and marketing, she was offered a management position in the Eastern location. She joined as an established staff as the daughter of an owner at age 24, which was challenging. She joined an establishment, through the process, she learned a lot about herself and the business, but needed more life and work experience to give her the tools necessary to be a true team leader. When a position opened in franchising as coordinator, she took it. She made lead calls, helped open multiple bakeries on the West Coast, and acted as assistant to Debbie, who ran the sales process at that time. She fell head over heels in love with franchising. When a third partner, Craig Moore, joined the brand in 2010, she was promoted to director of franchising. Built the franchise sales process from the ground up, traveled across the country, hosted expos, education events, honed the evaluation process, and worked with the executive team. She also assisted and qualified NBC owners in the expansion process. Before she became a franchisee herself, she helped grow the brand to 270 units. The support team culture thrived and grew as she was always awestruck by how special the brand was and still is today. So Jenna, welcome to the podcast. We are thrilled to have you here and delve a little more deeply into your very interesting and unusual path in franchising.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
It is kind of exciting. Jenna, you and I have known each other for many years, and if I could, I would adopt you as my daughter. I think I've told you that many times. You just have a wonderful heart and mind for business. It's just beautiful. So I'm actually curious, this whole idea of working within a business that your mom and her friend established, how was that whole experience working on the inside?
It was and has been, it's been my passion since I was very, very young. This brand started in our kitchen and no one ever imagined that it would be a franchise. Initially, they were not thinking franchising at all. They were intimidated by it, to be honest. I mean, franchising is a big word and it's a loss of control. And a lot of, I think, founders have that initial feeling before really truly researching the opportunities associated with franchising. And so looking back, you know, when you live it, it's a little bit different than when you look back at it and you look at the evolution of the business and where it came from and then what it became. And also beginning the franchise process of going to the IFA and learning those first several years. And then that conversion to teaching others, teaching other new franchisors that are out there and telling them all of the mistakes that you made so they don't hopefully make them too.
Right.
It's been an honor to be a part of every phase of it. And I do feel that truly. And I really enjoyed giving other families the opportunity that mine had. You know, it's been incredible to be a part of all of that.
It's fun to watch something grow, right? It was just a little idea, bundt cakes, come on.
Right.
It was just a little idea and a great recipe that turned into this wonderful business for so many franchisees that who'd have thought a little seed like that, a little bundt cake could turn into such an incredible business. So working inside with your mom and her partners and the leadership team growing the business, there was a point when things began to change for you, or you wanted a change, and you ended up choosing to go from a leadership role within Nothing Bundt Cakes to choosing to be a franchisee yourself, which, by the way, says a lot about the concept, right? when
Yes.
someone on the inside chooses to then own the business, says a lot about why that concept is so fabulous. But tell us about that process of going from leadership position within a franchise organizations to becoming a franchisee.
Okay. So in my bio, we talked a little bit about how I was a manager at one of our bakeries when I was 24 years old, just kind of fresh out of college, still young, still needing life experience, and going in as the boss's daughter to the established staff. That was a challenge, and I'll speak to that briefly. I came in and was automatically, they imagined that I had a silver spoon in my mouth, right? And I was just gifted this job, and I'm the boss's daughter, and I really had to prove myself over the course of a year. And I did that. I showed the team that I was there to work alongside them, that I would be dependable, that I would show up, that I would be the first one there, the last one to leave. And you almost have to work harder in that scenario as the boss's daughter, right? And I did learn a lot from that, but I also knew that I wanted to gain more experience as they started to launch the franchise side of the business. I knew that I loved people, and I really wanted to make connections with people that were interested in growing the business. So I went into the coordinating side of it and making lead calls and having these conversations with incredible people that I learned so much from, even in those calls. And then I took over the entire sales process. I worked with you, Rebecca, in the profiling side of the business. That was so fascinating to me. And then I got to a point in franchise sales after 10 years from franchise coordinator to director of franchising, where I loved what I was doing, but I could do it almost in my sleep. It was very, very repetitive at that point. I could identify really great qualified candidates initially in the very first phone call. And then the process was duplicated pretty much for every single, even though the conversations were different, the process was pretty much the same. And I continued to see the brand grow and the success of the franchisees, and just thought to myself over time, why couldn't I do this? Why couldn't I become a franchisee? And also there was a unique opportunity for me in the Las Vegas market. The entire time that the franchise company was franchising, we were focused outside of Las Vegas, and Las Vegas was very protected for Mom and Dena, right? In case they wanted to grow or expand after they focused their energy and efforts on franchising. So there was an opportunity in the Southwest that my mom had kind of reserved for her potential growth. But as she got older and wanted to kind of change her life path and, wanted to enjoy traveling and sell her part of franchising and go into that phase of her life, she didn't want to expand into more bakeries locally, but she wanted to help me have the opportunity to do that. So the market was, very well versed in the brand. It was seeded. It just made a lot of sense. So my husband and I had a conversation. He's also a business owner too. So I think having that experience on his side supported me in my dreams of business ownership too. So we just decided to jump in and have a new challenge and expand who I am as a person and human being even more, which I'm all about. I love that. So we just did it and we went for it. And we knew that with all of the experience and knowledge that I had about the brand, that if we weren't successful, then it would be very surprising. So, and I wouldn't ever change that decision. It's the best one I've ever made.
I think it's such an interesting thing. Would you say, how intentional, I'm curious about, because you did some things, you did a lot of different roles and you had a part in building process. I mean, when you talk about the repetitive process because it was working, that's a success. That's a win right there, because what you've done is now working and is pretty self-sufficient, right, in the process. So how intentional were you in doing the different roles that you did and learning the different things that you did as you went? You might not have had the end goal of franchisee in mind, but were you doing those things, especially as a 24-year-old girl? That's a lot. I have a 23-year-old, and understanding that you have to overcome this stigma almost of being the boss's daughter. I've worked in scenarios where I was the boss's daughter, and it can be not fun at all.
Right. It wasn't.
Assumptions. Yeah. And it can be intimidating because you think, you're capable and smart and hardworking, but nobody thinks that you are.
Right.
So, I mean, that's kind of a couple of questions in one, but I want to know about your intention and then how, as a young woman, you embraced that, because that's not fun.
Well, I've always enjoyed working. I mean, I've had a job since I was 13. I helped file papers when I've worked alongside mom for a really long time, and she's my closest friend and I really respect her, but it also was an intention of mine to come out of her shadow, right? Because she was a very strong, driven woman that came up with this incredible brand and concept, and I was the daughter. So I wanted to personally create my own path and create my own legacy per se. So I think that was part of my intention too, was in creating the franchise sales process, I wanted it to be a process that could be utilized even after I left. And still to this day, I just asked the president of our company, Kyle, the other day, I asked him if it was still being utilized the same way that I had created it. And he said, absolutely. I think they've made very minor tweaks to it or updates or changes to the website in terms of AUV and all that stuff. But that legacy still exists. And I think looking back, that was part of my intention. I wanted to leave a legacy just like my mom had left a legacy, but in my own way. And I feel like that was my way of doing that. So I think that answers.
Yeah, it does. And I think that's so important because it is hard. My dad and my brother are both lawyers, and working together or apart, or how do you forge your own path under somebody else's very large shadow it's a hard path to navigate, which sounds kind of excusey when, you come from a person who's been very successful, but there's a legitimate intimidation factor, and there's a legitimate need for strength of character for you to show who you really are and have that legacy independent of the other person. Right. So I think that it's been the fact that you chose to be a franchisee within the system as the daughter is pretty impressive. And she's got to be very proud of that too. I mean, how does she feel about it?
Oh my gosh, she's so proud. She says to me, you're a better operator than I ever was. And I just am like, well, that's the biggest compliment you could ever give me. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
That's crazy. And I think it was validating for the franchisees that I brought to the system as well. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm here to practice what I preached. So I'm going to join and I'm going to work in the trenches with you guys now. And it's given me such a unique perspective because I have sat with the franchisor hat on, and now I have the franchisee hat. And had I done things differently, the sales process would have been different too, because I just have so much more understanding now that I'm older and have so much more business experience. Being on both sides of it is a unique position to be in. And sitting on the brand advisory council too has been really, really fun because I can ask questions understanding both sides of the answer in a different way.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a huge asset for them, just to have that feedback and input with all that knowledge.
And it's fun to work with them again. I kind of went on my own way for a couple years and missed everybody. I did my own thing and built my business, and then empowered some of my team members to run the operation so that I could have more flexibility to connect with the chamber and kind of do more big picture stuff. Including being part of working with the franchise company again. And so to circle back on that, the theme has been a lot of circling, like getting back to the beginning and kind of coming around to, just like a bundt cake, right? It's almost like that's been
oh my gosh,
my life.
Your theme of life is a cake. I love that.
It is. It really
it's a round cake. It's a bundt cake. It's a circle cake.
Yep.
Oh, can you elaborate? When we're talking themes, Elizabeth and I are both just fascinated in how themes do run in our lives somehow. And you use this term circle back, or circle of life, or somehow coming back to something. How has that played in your life? Or am I describing that even correctly?
Yes. I mean, coming full circle is...
Full circle.
Is I think the theme, and the example I just gave about coming back to the franchise support team after leaving and becoming a franchisee is probably one of the best examples. One of my goals in life too was always to be a mom. That was something that was going to be part of my path. And so I've been able to have everything that I wanted, you know what I mean? All of the dreams that I had I had to work hard for them, but I was able to make them a reality. And that was all effort that I had to put in to do that. It's not gifted to you. Even, when people thought that the job was a gift when I was 24 coming in as a bakery manager, it was not a gift. It was a challenge, as I've said multiple times, but I embrace that. I enjoy that. And that was the first challenge I think that I really came across that caused me to want to tackle it and to know that I could, and to just take the bull by the horns and execute and show people that I stand behind what I say.
Yeah, you certainly do. I know that part of you. And I remember conversations about your dream to be a wife and a mama. And here you are. Here you are, a business owner. Here you are, having left a legacy at your young age within Nothing Bundt Cakes, creating a system that is bringing good franchisees in and good partners for the franchisor. You left that legacy. It continues to thrive and allow others to thrive. And then here you are, a model of what it means to build a Nothing Bundt Cakes location and be an operator and be in your community, etc. And then at the same time, you are raising a family. How does that all work together? I mean, that seems like a ton to juggle.
It is. This is my year of boundaries. Because I'm such a yes person that it's very easy for me to take on way too much. And so really understanding the prioritization of my time. And my children are young. I have a 5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. And I don't want them to miss me too much during this time frame, because I won't ever get these years back. And it's also an example of coming full circle for me, because my mom started when I was 14, right? I was very impressionable teenage girl. Probably not the most ideal time for a mommy to not be at home a lot. But she just pulled me in as free child labor initially to the business.
Well, that's one way to keep
Yeah,
going, right?
Smart woman. So, it was a stark difference when I was that age because she was a stay-at-home mom with us for a lot of that time. Although she always worked, she was doing things that she was able to do from home so that she could make lunches for us every day and be there to help us with our homework and just be there. And it was a big change when Nothing Bundt Cakes started, and then her full energy and focus was on the business. At the time, my dad had lost his job. So really the whole responsibility of the family was on her shoulders. So she was gone a lot, which then bringing me into the business with her was part of a way for her to still keep tabs on us and be able to spend time with us. So I value what the business has brought to our family, but I remember how much of a change it was for me. So I would like, my goal, thinking through my experience personally with my children, is to sacrifice some of that time on the front end, really work with my team to mentor and empower them to run the business the way that I would, so that I can then be there more for my children when they'll remember it and when it's really important for them to have me as a figurehead in their lives, and still be able to have me, right? Because a lot of my identity is my career. And I wasn't willing or able to really fully sacrifice that once I had children, because it was later in life that I had kids. I was 34 when I had Owen and 37 when I had Holden, and I was already established. So I wasn't ready to sacrifice that side of me. And I've continued to just say yes to pretty much everything, but I have realized that it's taking a little bit more time away from my kids. And so I'm trying to figure out how I can kind of pull back just a little bit and find that balance between motherhood and business, and still be able to have it all, have my identity and have my kids and have good relationships with them. But it's a constant learning process and evolution and battle that women and mothers in business fight.
Always.
Well, it really is. And I think, we've talked a lot on this show about mom guilt and how we overcome that. My sister has an enormous amount of mom guilt, to the point where I think it really becomes a problem in her psyche. And I've told her, I think that, you know, having your daughter and your son, she has to watch you work hard and find success and create your businesses is not a bad thing. You know, look at the relationship you have with your mother, and the respect that you have for her and what she was able to accomplish, in spite of the fact that it might have taken up more of her time. I think so much of it is how we talk to ourselves.
Mhm.
You know, and I have, you know, 5 kids, and they are always excited when something good comes my way. You know, when the magazine launched and when the coterie launched and all these things, it gives them a feeling of pride.
Mhm.
So I think some of it is there is a balance. Well, I always say I don't think there's a balance. I think there's a priority. If they know they're your top priority, then you can work around time limitations.
Right.
But part of it is how we as women speak to ourselves about what choices we're making, and owning those, and not feeling like we're torn into a million directions.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah. And I said with young children, they require so much more physical attention. You know, and the older they get, it becomes more and more emotional support
Right.
and attention.
Yeah.
And so it's a constantly evolving need, right?
Mhm.
So tell me about how your attitude toward your mom, in terms of what you learned as a working mom from her, and how that has impacted your perception of her and yourself.
Well, I always saw her working. So it wasn't like she didn't work. And to be honest with you, stay-at-home moms is a full-time unpaid job.
Oh yeah.
Super hard. That's work too. It's just not paid. So I have really good friends that have chosen that path, and they thrive in it, and that's work too. So it's just as valuable in my opinion.
Absolutely.
But being able to see mom, pride is absolutely the very perfect word for that, because I was always very proud of the business and the product. You know, this product is so delicious. People just love it. And whenever I wear my logo to the grocery store, or I'm not even paying attention to wearing it out in some random errand, people just fawn over it. And they just can't wait to tell me their very first bundt cake story. And it's
good.
so cool to hear those things, and to watch my mom expand from just a single unit bakery owner to then opening a second location in Las Vegas, and then growing remotely in Phoenix, because initially they just wanted to grow into maybe 6 locations around the southwest part of the country and just run those corporately and never franchise. And that was kind of the end game for them initially. But opening that remote location in Phoenix taught them that it is very, very hard to run a business from another state.
Yeah.
You know, and they wanted, rather than just hiring a manager, because one of the funniest stories that they always tell is they hired a manager to run that location. And then my mom made a surprise visit to Phoenix and stood in the front of the bakery for 10 minutes. No one was even there. No one came out. No one acknowledged her. So she walked in the back, and the manager had her feet propped up on the desk, and the whole staff was watching Shrek. I mean, on the manager's computer. They're just watching a movie, hanging out. Yeah. So mom let the manager go, obviously, and they promoted a 17-year-old girl named Katie Ott to manager. And Katie did the best she could she was very driven. She was just very young. I mean, but she was awesome. She did the best she could. So that, not having an owner operator in that business, caused it to not take off the way that it could have. But that's what spurred them to say, okay, well, maybe we should look into franchising where people are as invested in the business as we are. So then they went to the East Coast Franchise Show and really did their homework and talked to other franchise companies, and decided that that was definitely the path that they wanted to go, created the FDD, and kind of the rest is history. So I got to be a part of all of that with my mom, and watching her launch the franchise company and start from nothing. And I mean, there were people that were interested in franchising for years before they actually launched it. So they did have a little bit of a little black book, I guess you could say, of people that expressed interest. And so they were able to follow up with some leads initially, and learned, you know, what they needed in order for people to qualify from those initial leads, which is often any franchisor's path, as you kind of learn from your first franchisees what not to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was in college at the time that they launched the franchise program, but I would talk to my mom almost every day, and she would take me on this journey with her, and just very, very proud of where they took it. And then having the awesome ability to travel with her and to open franchises with her and to work alongside her in the sales process and sit in final executive review days and watch her interview people and just aspire to grow into a person that could be anything like her. So she's just a really amazing human being.
Jenna, it's so interesting, the admiration and love that you have for your mom and her and you, where she's just incredibly proud of all that you have become. And she's more in the background now, right? You're in the foreground. She's in the background. I'm curious, when you see your future, you've left a legacy in-house, you are entrenched in your community. The Nothing Bundt Cake business is one where you really do have to be in the community, building those relationships, and you are really good at that. So you're going to leave a legacy, a fingerprint with your location and your community. But when you see your future, what else? What else is going to be, your fingerprint that says Jenna Lamb was here? This is who I want to become. This is what I want the world to know about me. This is ultimately the legacy that I want to leave behind. What do you see in the future for yourself?
Well, the end game for my husband and I we want 3 locations of Nothing Bundt Cakes. So we're always, open-minded to different things, but again, boundaries, right? So going back to that, I'm in the process right now of expanding into another location here in Las Vegas in the Galleria market. I'm actually, after this podcast, going to see a potential location to check that out and see what that looks like. So I'm going to expand within the brand for sure. And then I ultimately want to buy Eastern from Mom. She still is involved in the business in that sense. So she still is a franchisee. She has a bakery operator that she's really amazing in this way too. So her manager worked for her for 10 years, and on her 10-year work anniversary, she gave her ownership in the business. Wow. So she made her a partner.
Oh.
And that's really, really cool. So, and I have a great relationship with her. She also thinks long-term. She knows that ultimately that business will go to me as well. And that's the plan for Mom also. It's just not quite yet.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, I'm going to expand into another location, ultimately own 3. And you never know what the future holds in that sense. I mean, there wouldn't be any additional room for locations, at least based on our current model in Las Vegas. I don't know if non-traditional sites could become an opportunity in the future, but it kind of depends on what my boys want to do as well, because my brother wanted nothing to do with the Nothing Bundt Cakes business. And he's my very best friend, but he works in logistics in Boston. And he, I remember he lived in Shanghai for about 6 years, and I used to send him a frosting bag in his Christmas box, and he would cry. He'd be like, no, and throw it across the room. So it's just interesting how I took the same direction, and I was excited to be on that same path. And then my brother wanted to go a completely opposite direction. Okay. So I know that it's very possible that just one or both or neither of my boys will be interested in the bundt cake business. Mm-hmm. So I'll expose them to it, and then of course empower them to make their own decisions about their future and what they want to do. But the opportunity would definitely be there if they want to continue moving the brand forward after I do. So hopefully this business continues to be a legacy for my children and possibly their children. You never know what the future holds, but wow, that's the intent as of today.
That gives me chills. That's amazing.
Yeah. And that's the fun part of being a parent. I think you have these ideas, but with the 5 and with the 3 boys, as they were babies, I always call them opposite points of a triangle. They were so completely different, but they're so, so close. And watching them choose the different paths of life and who is more engaged in what you're doing and who's not. And my daughter, who is actually Donald's, my stepdaughter, but we don't use that word. She's following what I did. She's a writer as well. So who knew? You know, I mean, you never know. And it's fun to watch it unfold.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my kids are polar opposites too. Owen is he's more willing to do what you ask him to do. Holden, it's a fight every step of the way. So, but it's almost like I'm parenting myself and Holden. So it's kind of like kid karma is coming back.
It's that full circle again that you talked about.
Yeah, full circle. Exactly. You know, and I turned out okay. So
that's right.
You're good. See, my brother got me, who was easy peasy, and I got him, who was not easy peasy. He was a headstrong, challenging one. So, like, how did that work out?
Right? That's not fair. Come on.
But I know how it works because I watched it.
Yeah, right. There you go.
That's the key.
Well, Jenna, if there was one thing, we're closing up on our time here, but if there's one thing that you wanted people to know that you think they don't, or they misperceive or misunderstand or don't have the full picture, what is something you would want people to know about you?
That's a hard one for me because I pride myself on being very authentic and genuine. So I'm not sure that there's anything that comes to mind that I could say people don't know about me. I truly am an open book, and I'll give you a very honest answer, whether or not it's exactly what you want to hear. So I'm not sure how to answer that question, to be honest with you. I'd have to think about it.
Yeah, I don't think I could answer it either because I'm like you. I'm an open book and I probably share more than I need to. So I personally don't think that's a bad quality, Jenna.
Right. Thank you.
Sometimes people say I don't really need to hear all of this, but you know what? There's no doubt.
You're getting it whether you like it or not.
Well, they're going to hear it all and probably 2 or 3 times.
There you go.
Exactly. If you forget who you've told, you got to make sure everyone knows.
Exactly. They have to know.
That's funny.
That is funny.
Definitely, I'm not like that.
I'm going to say not your experience, Rebecca.
That is not my experience. No, as a Swiss person, I am much more private. That doesn't mean I'm not honest and authentic and transparent. It just means certain things are none of your business.
For me,
it's a good thing at times.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a blessing. My husband, I'll tell him stories, and sometimes I'm like, have I told him this story? But he won't give me anything in the face. He'll let me tell the entire story. And as I go through it, I get more and more excited because I'm like, oh, I can't believe I heard this story. And I get to the very end of it. He'll let me tell the whole thing and he'll be like, you told me that.
Oh.
He's like, but I like how you get more and more animated.
It's like a game now, right?
Yeah, right. I'm like,
to see how long it takes you to remember that you already told him the story.
Oh, that's funny. But I love that he does that. It shows that he's very interested. Maybe she's going to tell me one other juicy detail this time that she didn't give me last time.
That is hilarious. He's got a little quiet sense of humor, doesn't he?
Oh yes, sarcasm is his middle name. It's great.
That's so funny. Well, Jenna, I think we have reached the end of our time together, but if someone wanted to get a hold of you or they're interested in Nothing Bundt Cakes, what are the best ways to reach out to not only the brand for potential franchisees, but to you as a leader and as an owner?
Anyone can reach out to me anytime. My personal email address is jenna.lamb@nothingbundtcakes.com. I'm always happy to share my experience and support people. There have been several companies actually locally in Vegas that I've spoken with directly about. They were curious about franchising. How did it go? Grab coffee, have a phone call, whatever is necessary to help support anybody along that path or give them any lessons that I've learned along the way. I'm more than willing to do that. I love doing that. And so that's my email address. And then in order to connect with the franchise company on opportunities, I know they're releasing some new territories and looking at some smaller markets, which were not initially considered. So the website at nothingbundtcakes.com is going to be a great place to just click on the franchising tab and fill out the interest form. And then Jennifer Churchill is the director of franchising now, and she would be in touch with additional details.
Thank you, Jenna. We really appreciate your time. It's so good to see your face. I haven't got to actually see you at a conference in 3 years. Yeah, it just seems like forever. So thank you for taking some time for us today. We really appreciate it.
Well, and anytime you're in Las Vegas, I know a lot of people aren't traveling internationally right now, and this is a #1 destination domestically. So please let me know if you're in town. I'd love to grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and catch up.
All right. Sounds perfect.
All right.
Thanks again.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, ladies. I appreciate it. Have a good day.
The Franchise Woman is a bi-monthly digital magazine that empowers women as they navigate the franchising industry by providing relevant news, tools, advice, and inspiration. We are a resource for women who are seeking to own their own businesses, improve their existing businesses, find creative solutions, and take advantage of franchise opportunities. We feature women in the business who best exemplify our ideals and have something to teach our readers. In addition to our exclusive articles relating to the female entrepreneur, we also feature brands that are geared for women. Women have become the fastest growing sector in business ownership and have become a powerful, influenceable force fueling the economy. The Franchise Woman will give you the news that is relevant to you to help you navigate the path of successful franchise ownership. By women, for women, and about women. We are the Franchise Woman. Join us today at www.thefranchisewoman.com.